Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're delving back into dungeons together because cooperatively we're heroes. We're going to be gaining spells and equipment, taking out minions. Today we're taking a look at Tiny Epic Dungeons Adventures, which is a standalone expansion to Tiny Epic Dungeons. Now, it's a campaign-style dungeon crawler using the same core rule systems of the original Tiny Epic Dungeons. It's for 1 to 4 players, takes 60 minutes to play, is for ages 14 and up, and published by Gamelin Games. Now, it's being crowdfunded right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and I'll see you on the other side. This is a crowdfunding preview, so all the art and components you see here are not final. These are prototypes. To see the most up-to-date art and components, check the link in the description of this video. Now, Tiny Epic Dungeons Adventures is a cooperative game. It is 8 different chapters through a campaign, and each of them are going to be about an hour long. I have the first chapter set up, but I'm not going to try to spoil any of the big secrets for you. Now, each of the different chapters has an adventure booklet. So this is the first one. Of course, it says stop. Make sure you don't do things that you're not supposed to do. Don't go past signs. So each of the adventures or chapters are going to have sort of it's going to have a prologue here that we're going to read, and it gives you sort of where you're at, what you're trying to do, and then it's going to basically say, hey, okay, now you know what you're going to do. Now you're going to go pick your heroes. Now you have some heroes to choose from. Now also know that you don't need any experience with the previous game, that this is a standalone expansion from Tiny Epic Dungeons, but if you do happen to have that, then you can actually interchange the heroes, and many of the other things like the rooms, the spells, the loot and things like that are all interchangeable between the original game, but you don't need to have that or have any experience to play this. So each player is going to select a hero, and all the heroes are sort of different. They're asymmetric. They have a different amount of speed, different amounts of defense between them. They're going to have different amounts of strength and agility and intellect to pass tests, and they're also going to have different sort of special actions that they'll be able to do as well. Now, each of these heroes are going to have a certain amount of health, and they're going to have a certain amount of focus, which is going to help them do some of these special actions. At the beginning, each one's going to have their own sort of weapons here. In both hands, they have a punch, which is sort of a melee attack. In this case, a blunderbuss, which is a ranged attack. They're also going to be able to hold gear and things like that. And each of these heroes does come with a miniature that you'll be able to place out on the board. So once you select your heroes, you're going to go through the chapter, the beginning of it. It'll tell you the intro of that chapter. It'll also tell you what to open. There's special things that each chapter is going to have. And so each chapter has its own envelope, which it says do not open until instructed. Well, we were instructed to open it. So you'd open up, and actually in here are a set of cards and such that you'll be using specific. I've already taken those out. But there'll be certain cards that are going to be added for each chapter. And it's going to act as a chapter setup. It's going to show you how to set up this chapter, visually showing you how to do it. It's also going to give you the chapter's objective and failure. For example, here, we're going to venture into the keep. We're going to basically try to get to the lower sanctum down here, and we're going to get a key to unlock the sarcophagus, and then once unlocked, proceed to section C in the adventure booklet. So that's what we're going to try to do right now, because there's some spoilers and such I'm not going to show you, but there's certain ways of failing, and we're going to talk about more of these later. Well, since this is a campaign, it actually comes with a dungeon booklet. This is a spiral-bound booklet that you're going to open to with a certain chapter aspect of here, 1. And it's going to have, in this here, we're here, and we're trying, as that chapter objective said, we start here, and we're going to be doing different things to try to only, get out of here, also go through the dungeon, explore the dungeon, get to the sanctum, unlock the sarcophagus, and get back here and get out and things like that. So there's a lot of different things that are going to be happening, and these are going to be changing from chapter to chapter. As I zoom out here, you can see that the rest of the dungeon is sort of used with cards. Now, these cards came with this Tiny Epic Dungeons Adventures because it's a standalone expansion. But again, a lot of these rooms and such are interchangeable. You can use these with the previous game, Tiny Epic Dungeons, and vice versa. Now, I'm not going to be showing you all of the mechanisms of this game because it uses the same core mechanisms of Tiny Epic Dungeons. So if you want to see more detail when you get to the end of this overview, there's a link below that links to that preview video where you can see a lot more detail of how certain things work. But generally speaking, on your turn, you're going to be moving around based upon your speed, possibly doing one heroic action and then doing some free actions, moving around and exploring the dungeons and things like that. Now, you'll be going into different areas and possibly fighting against enemies, sometimes range attack, in this case it's melee attack. Again, depending on those attacks and which weapons you might have, you start off with some, but as I'll show you later, you can get some different ones. You'll have some different things here, like -1 strength if it's a melee attack, -2 if it's a range attack, and things like that. But you have different weapons that you can upgrade later. Now, for combat, essentially you're going to be rolling dice, a certain amount depending on your weapon, and who you are and your hero. So I get to roll 3 dice for melee. You're going to take your single best die like the 4, but sometimes you can add things to it. So that's a total of 7. But sometimes you'll be doing some modifiers, like my punching gives me -1, so I actually have 6. But since this is more defense than this kobold have, then I actually would do some damage. And these only take 1 damage and they're dead. When they're dead, you get to do different things, like get different items or spells. If it was still alive, if I did not kill it, it would then counterattack against me and things like that. Again, see my original preview to see how this works in more detail. Now, after each hero's turn, you're going to be moving this torch down. This is sort of a timer for the game, because if it ever gets to the end, you'll lose. Now, sometimes it will have an activation of the enemies, like doing damage to all heroes within 2 rooms away. And other times, like having more of those enemies coming out, which means they're going to be coming from here and spawning on different spots on the board. Now, if you ever need to place one of these and there's none there, then you lose as shown here. That's one of the other ways to lose, other than the torch getting to the end of the track. However, when you do kill some of these, they get placed back on here like this, giving you a little bit more time. Now, in addition to moving and doing a heroic action, you can do as many free actions on your turn, like spending 2 focus to manipulate a die up or down one. Now, some of the chapters, like this one, has places that you cannot move through. So in order to get to here, down to the sanctum part of the dungeon, you literally have to go around and start exploring the dungeon with other things happening. Now here in this one, you need a key to find a key and to actually go this short way, or you can go up and around like that. Now you can see places where you might be able to explore, which is spending 4 focus to get an exploration token. Now these are shuffled up, and when you get one of those, you just take one, and you can put it in your explorer's pack, and you might find something like a key, which will allow you to now use a key to get through this door and go through the shorter way through the dungeon. And other things might allow you to bomb through walls or revive heroes easier, things like that. Sometimes when you're exploring, you'll find traps where you need to do a skill check, in this case any type, and you need to have more than 6 in order to not lose 3 health, for example. And of course, skill checks are here. I would use strength because that's the one I have the most dice for. You can also try to disarm this trap, meaning when other players go through it, they don't have to do a skill check, but you're going to do any skill check here for more than 10, and if so, you get to move that torch up 5, which of course is going to give you more time, because remember, if it gets down to the bottom, you lose. Sometimes you might end up finding minions. Now here are some different minions you might end up facing, and all of them have different speed, different defense, different ways they fight, different ways they activate, and of course they'll have a certain amount of health that you'll be tracking as well. But when you defeat them, you're able to move the torch back, in this case 6, again giving you more time, and also getting items like spells, things like that. Now when you gain spells or loot, you can take it from the top, but sometimes you'll have opportunities to discard them if you don't want them, or if you're already holding too many of certain things. And you'll be doing different things, like these spells will allow you to do certain checks, like intellect of greater than 3, and this will allow you to spend 2 focus to increase your attack by 1 and defense by 1, for example. So all these spells do all sorts of different things, using focus a lot of times to do this. And here you have different loot things that you can actually put on. So here is something that you can put in your hand. This is something that you can wear, and they come from different sets. This is the Gog Blade of the Automa, and so this is of the Automa as well, the Gizmo. These have the same set collection icon, and when you get those together, now as showing here, this goes into one of the hands. You can decide which one to cover up. And this Cog Blade of the Automa, now I can use this. This will allow me to do melee attacks using green, which isn't as great because my melee attack's actually better. This would be better with someone else that has much better stats for that skill check. Here are the trinkets. You can hold up to 2 of them. Like this one, this activates by spending focus when you use the ranged attack. Here, if you do a melee attack, you can spend 4 to cancel out the die from the enemy. But having these sets unlocks this. I have 2 of these, so when I do a ranged attack, I'm going to get +1 focus, for example. If I have 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 of them, it does it even better. So you're inclined to set collect some of these items together. Now again, in this chapter, you're trying to get down to the sanctum, and then here you would then read the part B in the chapter book, which I'm not going to spoil for you. It's going to tell you what you're supposed to do, how you get the key to unlock the sarcophagus, and then what you have to do afterwards, and different things unlock, but I'm not going to spoil those aspects for you. Now that should give you a pretty high-level overview of what you're trying to do cooperatively, how the campaign and chapters work. If you want to learn more about some of the mechanisms in a little bit more detail, check the link for the preview of the original Tiny Epic Dungeons. Well, there you have Tiny Epic Dungeons Adventures, and as I showed in the overview, since it's a standalone expansion, you don't have to own or have the previous experience with Tiny Epic Dungeons in order to play or enjoy Tiny Epic Dungeons Adventures. But if you do, the heroes, loots, spells, dungeon rooms, enemies are all interchangeable between the original game and this standalone expansion. Now, if you'd like to see the most up-to-date art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me right in the description of this video. Now, that's going to take you directly to the crowdfunding project page, and I'm sure that Gameland Games would love your support.